Yes, welcome back to our little program that's devoted to those teams that are less thought of. Oftentimes, as we like to say, that are the road team, that are the team somehow undermanned, undervalued, underappreciated. We love the underdogs. It's all about it in terms of college football. It is Three Dog Thursday. I am the somewhat competent host, 2-0-1 last week. We'll get into that coming up for Three Dog Thursday. Welcome everybody back to the show, as we're here every week as part of the Winning Cures Everything platform of shows, the Winning Cures YouTube page and all of their other outlets, and also in podcast form for Three Dog Thursday, wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. Great to be back with you. Great to be joined this week. We got another guest prognosticator. My man, Gary Seegers, who does a great job with Winning Cures, is still on baby duty. Hello, Jason Powers from the Powers on Sports podcast, and also Florida Football Insiders, the podcast, which focuses on everything going on in the state of Florida with football, college, and pro. Jason filling in for Gary. Gary hanging in there. Mama Seegers hanging in there. Baby Murphy Jean, a couple of weeks on the planet. She's now a veteran of college football.
Real quick, did you FedEx some Pampers?
I got to send my man something. I got to Venmo or PayPal him some cash, get him some wipes. My man is operating on like 7 hours sleep since September 15th. So Seegers does a great job, though, with everything Winning Cures, also on the BetUS TV show. But that's a great point. So, Brother Powers, good to have you here as a guest handicapper. Again, we love Jason's insight with Powers on Sports, his podcast, talking everything, but football as well with Florida Football Insiders. You've been kind of rolling along. You participated in another show as a guest called the Press Box Radio. Yeah, primarily based in the Southeast. And what did you tell me? You picked 15 straight winners in college football, or maybe it wasn't 15. Maybe I'm exaggerating.
Not 15, but I do a segment every Wednesday, and this week I'm doing it on Thursday. So if you're listening to this on Thursday or later, go back to Thursday of this week. I'll be on the show at 9 a.m. Eastern in hour number 2. I was 6-0 last week, and I'm 14-10 on the year. I do 6.
And what were you on college football last week out of the 6-0?
4-0, faux.
I love that. Oh, little Moses Malone. You're going little Moses Malone on the program. Now, 3 of them were favorites, so we understand that's not what we do here, but you did have what as an underdog?
I know you told me you had a push in this game, but I made the play when I made the prediction on Wednesday. It was 3.5. I had Notre Dame plus the hook. I got the hook there, even with 10 guys on the field, Marcus.
Oh, my God. All right, so I had Notre Dame plus the 3. I thought I was golden, because they had stopped them, and then there's a penalty, and then they had stopped them again, and there's a intentional grounding, and then they get them to 3rd and 18, and they let them convert all the way down to the 1 yard line and get the clock stopped.
Yeah,
and then as we'll promote another podcast, by the way, the Last Word on Sports Media podcast that I just put out with Noah Eagle on the play-by-play call with Todd Blackledge on NBC. They didn't realize it. We didn't really realize it. Social media went crazy. They had 10 guys on the field the last two plays of the game.
Yes.
Which is remarkable, Jason, for the ending to that game. I'll go one better. Somebody has gone back and looked at the Tennessee State game from a couple of weeks ago, and there's a play in the first half of that game where they almost give up a touchdown pass right down the middle of the defense. They got 10 guys on the field on that play. They've been having this problem, apparently, on can we count to 11 with Notre Dame.
I'm amazed that Freeman knew that before the snap. And how do you not have, and I know it's a little not ethical maybe, how do you not have a signal to your defense, fall down, act like you got a cramp, so the referees stop play so you can get organized, because they had no timeouts.
Yeah, because they came out of a timeout with all of that. What a mess. But Notre Dame covered for you. Push on this show. I'll say thank you to Army, who kept it close enough with Syracuse for our purposes. Again, we do this midweek. We're taking the lines as Jason and I are doing it as of Wednesday night. If the line goes up or down Thursday, Friday, or into Saturday morning, there's not anything we can do about that. This is project as if we had to be at the window while this show is going on. The price is the price. And so it was 14 last week. And so I was good with a late Army touchdown that got it within 13. That covered for Three Dog Thursday. And then thank you also to Washington State, another outright Pac-12 win for me with them as a dog. That's twice now against Wisconsin. And I went right back to them against Oregon State, where they were very impressive in this game. Wazoo's got it going on.
That is a brutal conference. You talk about going to be eating each other alive in that conference. There are going to be a lot of underdogs are going to cover games in that conference this year.
So I had two of those. The Notre Dame game was the push. So now I've got you here to help me out. And we're looking forward to talking about a bunch of games. I will just say up front to the audience, because I know where Jason is going. I obviously know where I'm going. We're either going to be brilliant, brother, by about 3 Eastern time Saturday, or we're going to be completely blown up and just kicking back and watching the rest. Because all of our picks are happening in the early window, in the early time slot for college football on Saturday, basically. So with that, let's get things underway. I always let the guest go first. So you will go first. Give me an underdog. And it's fascinating again, because all of Jason's underdogs are noon Eastern time starts. So which one do you want to begin with as we pick these against the spread, simply to cover? Winning the game's a bonus. Give me one to start with, please.
We're going to go back to the Old Faithful, the place where I have a diploma from. Played football there. In the deep heart of the South, the little stepbrother that could. We're going to UAB, Tulane in New Orleans. We got a 12 o'clock game. We got Trent Dilfer, year one, a guy we both know from our Tampa Bay days, is now the head coach at UAB, taking over for kind of the Bill Clark era. There was a year in between there, but Trent Dilfer kind of taking over there. You got Michael Pratt at Tulane, who we know is a really good quarterback. UAB went to Georgia last week. They were getting 40. I almost took them getting 40, and they covered the number pretty comfortably. That game was really never that much in doubt as far as them covering. I think, they got off to a little bit of a rough start. I think Dilfer against a little more even talent. The talent's not that much of a difference. Tulane's got better players. They're a better team. But I think 21.5, I think the hook could be important here. I think the hook, 21.5. Give me the Blazers at a 12 o'clock game in New Orleans. I like the Blazers. Jacob Zeno at quarterback, pretty good quarterback. Dilfer's got him playing better the last couple of weeks. Give me the Blazers plus 21.5.
Well, and again, we have to say that UAB was able, at least in the first half, to hang in there. I believe it was I want to say it was a 14-14 game. And then Georgia eventually pulled away second and third quarter. UAB got a late touchdown to help them kind of dress it up and cover the number. Again, Dilfer, a former quarterback with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which we know. He also quarterbacked the Baltimore Ravens to a Super Bowl win with that superhuman defense, and that was in Tampa. So he's got some cachet. And a Nashville, Tennessee high school coach that won a Tennessee State high school championship. So it's interesting. It's fascinating. But Tulane has been such an interesting story. Willie Fritz, the coach, at home with the Green Wave. You will go right to that one now, as it's an American Conference game. UAB now a member of the American Conference this year, going to Tulane. You will say, give me 21.5 in this one. They covered a big line.
Tulane wins the game. No doubt about Tulane winning the game. I think 21.5 is just a few too many.
And we should elaborate that Jason Powers was a kicker on the UAB team in the early 90s, early to mid 90s. So you have allegiance there to the UAB Blazers, and we'll see if that allegiance helps pay you off. All right, so for my first underdog, I want to back up to Friday night. And this is interesting, and I will totally give credit here to our colleague Brian Edwards, who does a tremendous job as a senior handicapper with Vegas Insider with MajorWager.com. Brian has been with me on Three Dog Thursday for years as a guest. He's been very busy, been unable to come in these pinch hitting roles on Winning Cures and winningcureseverything.com and the YouTube page and the Three Dog Thursday podcast. But Brian has been talking about this game for 2 days as we tape this podcast about the line movement in the Cincinnati BYU game. Let's go Big 12. Yes, with all these different Texas schools and Oklahoma schools and Kansas schools, we got to get used to, Jason Powers, that BYU Cincinnati is now a Big 12 conference game. So BYU hosting the Bearcats in Provo. Cincinnati hung in for a while, didn't get blown out by Oklahoma, but they were beaten at home. And they had a lot of attention on that game because they were the Fox big noon kickoff with the pregame show there and everything last week. And Oklahoma basically handled them. BYU, meanwhile, suffered a tough loss their last time out, but they've had a good start to the season, and they are really good at home right now as an underdog. The last 4 occasions as an underdog, Brian stat 3-1, 3-1 as an underdog at home, as they are in this instance for the matchup that's upcoming with Cincinnati. So we'll wait to see what happens. And what Brian was talking about, how about the line movement, Jason Powers, that this opened with BYU being favored by a couple of points. And Brian said he learned from a source out in Las Vegas that one of these syndicates, so they have these syndicates, you and I aren't part of it, the unofficial
big
mafia,
whale, big investors,
whatever, the big investor syndicate loved that number and pounded that number in like an hour or two, from Cincinnati getting 2 points to BYU now getting 2 points, 4-point swing essentially.
Right.
I heard an interview where Brian said, I make this number 4.5 for BYU. So you're telling me it's a 6-point swing. He's saying, right, I'm taking BYU. I'm going to piggyback off him. I'm going to jump on board with the Cougars at home in Provo. By the way, BYU again to start the season. They lost to Kansas last week, but they beat Sam Houston State. They beat Southern Utah for what it's worth, and then they won at Arkansas earlier in the year before the Kansas loss. And in the Kansas loss, there were 2 defensive touchdowns that turned that game around, a game that BYU was winning at halftime.
They were in that game.
They were very much in the game. The Mormons are 19-3 in their last 22 games straight up at home in Provo. Tough place to play.
Yep.
This is going to be a Friday night electric atmosphere for BYU. Give me them and the modest couple of points just to win the game outright. Jason, final thought, if anything, before we move on.
No, I like that. I mean, BYU is always a good competitive team. They're always physical. They usually have better linemen. Remember, this is probably the oldest team in the country year after year with all the Mormon missions and all that. So I'm with you. I like that. And Cincinnati getting pounded by Oklahoma last week. I like BYU.
And again, for BYU, Keaton Slovis is the quarterback, well-traveled. Was at USC, I believe, at West Virginia.
Pitt last year.
Forgive me, the backyard brawl. And now he's at BYU. Yep. Let's see what the Cougars look like on a Friday night game, a Friday night, late night game with Cincinnati in the Big 12. Again, we hang here on 3 Dog Thursday. Jason Powers with me. JPO Sports is where you find him on social media. Powers on Sports Podcast. Also, Florida Football Insiders Podcast. Love his insight. You can find the Florida Football Insiders Podcast wherever you get podcasts. It's part of the College Gridiron Coast to Coast feed. Well, I'm going to talk to him about a Florida team that I like as an underdog, and we'll get some other ideas on some Florida teams. You're not going to a Sunshine State team. You're going to a different team. Again, noon Saturday, noon Eastern time. What is underdog number 2 for you?
We're going to the state of Texas. We're going to it's considered a neutral site game. It's a big rivalry game. It's held in Jerry World every year for the last bunch of years. It's a SEC game, so it's weird that there's not really a home team, but both fan bases bring a bunch of people. They don't like each other. It's a very competitive game most years. This year is a little bit of an interesting scenario. The starting quarterback for one of the teams got knocked out for the year last year, and we got a guy that we know whose son is now the starting quarterback for said favorite in this game, Mr. Max Johnson, who threw a touchdown to his brother last week, which was crazy. If you know, which is brother to brother, which doesn't happen. And again,
Max Johnson, we should elaborate, is the son of Super Bowl winning Buccaneer quarterback. It all comes back to the Buccaneers on 3 Dog Thursday this week. Brad Johnson's son, Max Johnson, former LSU quarterback, on the bench waiting for his opportunity as the backup. And then the starting quarterback suffers the foot injury, correct? Right. And now they've basically declared him out for the year midweek here. So it's Max Johnson's situation. It's at AT&T Stadium. It's early. This is a noon, 11 a.m. local time. It's a interesting rivalry that goes back to the old Southwest Conference, which hasn't existed for 30 years.
Remember, Jerry Jones played at Arkansas with Jimmy Johnson. That's why the game's in Dallas. There's a lot of rivalry there.
But you are looking to call the Hogs here. Give me the reason why.
I like. Remember, Arkansas, if you didn't see last week, they took LSU to the limit in Baton Rouge, lost 34-31 on a late field goal. I think the last play of the game, in the last 15 seconds of the game, something like that. KJ Jefferson, a quality quarterback. He's an experienced guy. Arkansas's offensive line ain't great, and Texas A&M has a very good defensive line. But remember a couple of weeks ago when Arkansas played a competitive team, they went to Miami, and Miami put 48 on them. I don't know if Arkansas can win the game, but I think Arkansas can score. I think the quarterback position play for Arkansas is going to be good enough. We don't know the status of Rocket Sanders. Is he back in the mix, the tailback for Arkansas? But I like Arkansas plus 6.5. You might have to buy up to 7 if you have an opportunity to do that, but we're going to play it at 6.5. Give me the Hogs plus 6.5 in a rivalry game.
And again, Sam Pittman has been really good as an underdog. I heard, again, this stat being kicked around. I believe he is 14-6 in his last 20 games as an underdog ATS, 14-6. So let's see what it looks like for Arkansas. You'll take the 6.5 points here on 3 Dog Thursday for the matchup with Texas A&M. Again, all of these games that Jason and I are pegging now for Saturday are all early. They're all at noon. So again, I repeat, either we're golden and doing the happy dance, or we're probably blown up. One of the two. We shall see. Let me make mention that we are sponsored in part by TicketSmarter and the TicketSmarter mobile app. If you are looking to get into Jerry's World right now for this matchup, and it's a massive stadium, the high 7th level seats, what they actually consider the 400 level, but it's really the 7th level with the suites, etc. They are about $75 to get in up in that 400 level, which is the 7th level of the stadium. Jason, if you want the better seats down low, you're going to be paying $300, $350, $400. Use TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app, and use our promo code WCE20 for Winning Cures Everything, the platform we're on. My man Gary Seegers is fantastic with all the content here where we are. Use that promo code because you're going to take $20 off your order of $300 or more. It's going to cost you basically $300 for a good seat. If you're buying a couple tickets, it's going to cost you around $450, $500 or more dollars to go to this game, Arkansas, Texas A&M. Use TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app. They've got the most competitive prices on the secondary market. Their purchase policies and security and safety is second to none. Your purchase is guaranteed. You'll get your tickets instantaneously. Use TicketSmarter and the TicketSmarter mobile app. WCE is the promo code 20. WCE20, $20 off a $300 or more order. And again, this code is good, Jason, as many times as you want to use it. In the college football, so use it everywhere. Use it over and over again. It's not just a one and done like the NCAA tournament.
And it's a beautiful thing. You can spend the weekend in Dallas. You can see Belichick and the Patriots against the Cowboys and Sunday afternoon.
And use the code. Use WCE20 because it's good for the NFL. It's good for the Major League Baseball postseason, concerts, whatever, NBA season starting up, whatever you want to use.
The Rangers are going to be hosting playoff games in baseball.
There you go. But, I mean, this is good if you're going to Duke, Notre Dame, that we're going to talk about briefly in a little bit. This is good if you're going to Colorado, USC, where, again, the get-in price is like $250 for the nosebleed seats at Colorado for a 10 a.m. kickoff. It's like $500, $600 for the good seats for Colorado, USC in Boulder. Use the promo code WCE20, $20 off a $300 or more order. Good all year long. Use it as much as you want for the college football, the NFL, the MLB postseason, whatever you want. TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app, promo code WCE20 to save you some dough. I owe you a second underdog in this scenario, and I'm going to the SEC. Speaking of your Florida Football Insiders podcast, you've been talking some about the Florida Gators, who've been better as of late after that opening night disaster in Utah, where they couldn't even line up right, my friend. They're playing special teams with two guys with the same number on, Jason Powers, as you know. Well, they've got it together. We had on this show, we had the Florida Gators. Colby, Dan, and I had the Florida Gators outright possibility, and they did win outright over Tennessee in that game. All right, so now they come back and they play Charlotte. They didn't cover in a 26-7 win. Ho-hum kind of game. Now they go to Kentucky, where Kentucky has had their number in recent years. Kentucky has back-to-back wins in the series. Kentucky going for a third win in 4 years against Florida. And they have not done that since the late 1940s. The Kentucky Wildcats beating the Florida Gators 3 times in 4 years. Florida, a short 1.5 favorite. We're getting the hook at a 1.5. I think they figured some things out. It's an early game, Commonwealth Stadium in Lexington. I like Florida outright. I'll take that 1.5. Quick thought, because you do this on Three Dog Thursday and talk Florida college football on that podcast.
Nope.
Quick thought on the Gators. I know you're not going on the record with it, but quick thought.
Did you see the catch of the year last week by Ricky Pearsall from Florida, the one-handed catch?
My goodness. Leaping up with the one-handed kind of backhand stab.
Basically behind him.
Just a tremendous catch, tremendous play, and that kid's been a kick returner, receiver threat. You got Mertz, the former Wisconsin quarterback, trying to throw it. He's sometimes accurate, sometimes not. Do you have a smidge of belief in Florida here at Kentucky, who's 4-0, but there's some question marks about the 4 wins? They gave up a lot of points to Vanderbilt last week, Kentucky.
Yeah. I would stay away from this game. I think with it being in Lexington, I think, to me, it's a toss-up. It's a pick-em game. You got Devin Leary at Kentucky, who's a good quarterback. But the Florida defense has been pretty good after that Utah game. The running game's getting going with Etienne. They're getting a little bit of a passing game with Mertz. Still not great, but I don't have an opinion on this game. I definitely could see Florida winning the game. But SEC, it's tough to win on the road when you got 2 evenly matched games. So, but you can listen to Sean Kelly. He was on the Florida Football Insiders podcast, play-by-play voice of the Florida Gators. If you want to hear a little bit of Sean Kelly, check out the podcast.
That's exactly right. And he was talking earlier that maybe this was going to be an October situation before this team came together. What did he tell you? 52 new players?
Yeah.
Something like that, because the transfer portal, people transferring out, bringing in new guys, 52 new guys. 52 new guys, freshmen and transfer portal. So it might take some time to gel. Again, ESPN will have this game at noon, SEC Showdown, Florida and Kentucky for the matchup in Lexington. That is my second underdog. 2 more to go here on the program. Jason Powers, final underdog for college football and Three Dog Thursday for you. What do you like?
We're going to the ACC. We're going up north in the ACC as well. You got a team that came off a devastating loss last week. The most likely their hopes of a champion, any kind of playoff run are over. Potentially they're out of the ACC title game contention after 2 conference games. They've already lost 2 conference games. Then you're playing a team that's won 4 in a row. They beat a team that a lot of people thought would beat them last week in Army. They covered the number, which they're right on the number. They didn't really cover it, depending on when you bet the game.
That's right.
They were right on the number as far as that. A lot of people thought Army could beat them. A coach who's been on the hot seat on and off for the last couple of years, but always tends to play Clemson well. I like Syracuse plus the 7 in the Carrier Dome, or whatever we're calling it these days. Garrett Schrader's been there. Seems like he's been there for 10 years, the quarterback for Syracuse. Clemson's had issues there in the past when they've had much better teams. I think Syracuse beat them outright 5 or 6 years ago. It might have been a Friday night game. I believe it was a Friday night game. Babers just finds a way to he's a good guy, doesn't have 5-star players, but they always play competitive. Give me Syracuse, a sleepy start. It's a 12 o'clock game. I think that helps Syracuse. You got Clemson coming off the devastation last week, the missed field goal at the end, the overtime calamity of the play calling in overtime. Give me Syracuse plus the 7 to keep it close against Clemson.
And again, I had Clemson as an honorable mention. They were in great shape. They then had the fumble return. Give Florida State credit for the strip fumble that turned that game around momentum-wise. And then what a tremendous catch by Keon Coleman in the overtime for Florida State. He's a playmaker, the Michigan State transfer. Jordan Travis has improved as a throwing quarterback, so it's a big win for Florida State. It's a crushing loss for Clemson. You're right, they're 0-2 in the conference. They do not want to be 0-3. Very interesting here that you're getting a touchdown at home, 6.5. 7. We'll give you 7 is what I see for Syracuse with Clemson. I'm going to call it the Carrier Dome forever. It was the Carrier Dome for 45 years. They now call it something else. So this one, it'll be rocking. I think I saw where Syracuse has only been 5-0 like 4 times ever. One of those times is my buddy Don McPherson, the Heisman runner-up back in the late 1980s. That year they went undefeated and had the tie in the Sugar Bowl. But it's been rare that they've gotten to 5-0. They're trying to get to 5-0 here with a game against Clemson at home. And you think they could sneak out a win? Man, is Dabo and his Tigers going to be 0-3 in the ACC when they were preseason top 10? It's possible. If they don't get it done this week, they are 0-3 in the ACC.
Yeah, no doubt. And my other team, my Florida State Seminoles, finally got the benefit of a last week, a short miss by Clemson late in regulation. What'd you think of the Dabo play call 3rd and 1 in overtime? We're running a screen pass for a 3-yard. I mean, to me, that just symbolizes the Clemson year, just not on any kind of rhythm. Their talent level is not as good as it's been either the last 4 or 5 years. So that
he won't go in the
very
transfer portal.
Very reluctant to dabble in the transfer portal, and you're seeing the effects of it.
Yep.
I think that the talent gap is not nearly what it used to be in the ACC between Clemson and everybody else.
It has been humbling for them. And again, we'll see what happens in this one at noon in the ACC. I have one underdog remaining. Again, we are doing nothing but noon underdogs on Saturday. Here comes number 5 of the early start underdogs. This one just stood out to me. Let's go to the Big Ten. Let's go to the home of the Gophers, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minnesota and Louisiana, with this one coming up again at an 11 a.m. local time start. Minnesota stunned, shocked. Powers, have we figured out midweek, like 96 hours later, how did they blow a 21-point lead at Northwestern and find themselves as a double overtime loser last week? Do we have an
criminal?
explanation?
That's a criminal loss by PJ Fleck. Criminal. Can't lose that game to that team.
They melted down, and Northwestern was throwing it on them. Again, they've got an interim coach. They've got our buddy. It all comes back to Tampa. Skip Holtz, the former USF coach, the former Louisiana Tech coach, the former USFL pro coach for the spring league.
He's still a coach.
He's helping Northwestern's offense as a consultant or a hired gun, and they played a little better, and they came back and beat Minnesota. All right, so now we have a perfect sandwich game, which we love on 3 Dog Thursday, where you have the crushing loss, and guess who's coming to dinner next Saturday night for the NBC primetime game in Minneapolis, Michigan. So it is a perfect spot to overlook the Rayjon Cajuns of Louisiana. Are you feeling me? Are you feeling Zion with a Z, not Leon with an L? Zion Chris is the quarterback's name. Who in the world is this? Zion Chris is a former state champion quarterback at the 3A level in Louisiana. That's saying something. Dual threat quarterback. He came in last week because of injury and won the game against Buffalo, not the Buffalo Bills, but the Buffalo Bulls. So now you've got Louisiana against Minnesota. I don't know how good Minnesota is. They also lost to North Carolina. This is at home. Perfect look ahead, too, with them pointing towards Michigan. I'm getting points that I love here. I'm getting double-figure points. What am I getting? I'm getting 11 points here beyond the key number of 10. Give me Louisiana to keep it close and scare Michigan into the fourth quarter, if not late in the fourth quarter. A thought real quick before we're done on all that I laid out there about Louisiana, Lafayette, at Minnesota.
The key thing here is with Skip Holtz being involved in this, did Papa Lou Holtz make any comments about the Minnesota program not being very good, even though he used to coach at Minnesota?
They're soft. You got 86-year-old Lou Holtz.
But he's not gonna diss Minnesota. He used to coach at Minnesota.
That's true. He did. He did briefly before he took the Notre Dame job, but Lou is 86. He's not needing to be a target. Why are we targeting Lou Holtz? Why are we targeting Lee Corso about things? My lord, they are the early bird special and in bed a lot of times by 7 p.m. No confirmation on that. But in any event, Skip Holtz and Northwestern with a big win. And I think there are questions about this Minnesota team right now. And
Louisiana is always a power in the Sun Belt. They're always a big-time team in the Sun Belt. They're always one of the top couple teams every year in that conference, and they got great athletes from Louisiana that are going to be able to compete with the Minnesota guys.
And that's where the Gator coach Billy Napier came from a couple seasons ago. So, and there's, again, he had success. He went to a bowl game. I believe they won a bowl game. That's how they helped him get the Florida job. So again, Louisiana plus the 11 at Minnesota. So I'm gonna give you 2 games on the honorable mention, and then we're gonna recap the picks and be done. Let's go back to what I briefly mentioned about Colorado 10 a.m. start in Boulder at that showdown with USC. Very interesting for this week because it was a humbling Saturday last week at Outson Stadium where Oregon could have named the score, and they were still trying to score in the third period when they were up 42-0. They were trying to score more. We saw Dan Lanning's pregame speech about it's not about clicks, it's about wins. All right, so they got humbled. Do they bounce back? It's a line that's 21 or 21 and a half.
Yeah.
I don't know. The reason I stayed away from this is I don't know if USC's defense isn't going to keep Colorado in the game, just like Arizona State stayed in the game late last Saturday night in what only turned out to be a 42-28 win. I could totally see this being like 38-28, 41-31. I could see Colorado scoring on them.
Absolutely.
Thought on that?
Yes. Last week in the Arizona State game, USC against a inferior Arizona State full rebuild program, 14 missed tackles on defense. You miss 14 tackles against the offensive talent that Colorado has on the outside, they're going to score points. You're right. Colorado can't stop USC. Caleb's probably going to score 45, but I am very confident that Shedeur and that offense, after how bad they looked last week, are going to be able to put together at least 24 to 28 points, which means USC's got to score 50.
And remember, they're USC, at home. They're at home.
Exactly.
There was a hostile situation last week where when everything started to go bad, it avalanched. And they know about avalanches in Colorado in the mountains, by the way. And so now here, the crowd may pick them up a little bit, even if they're down and out. And the other thing that scares me is watch Caleb Williams throw an interception, maybe even an early interception. Watch him throw a couple of interceptions, and that keeps Colorado in the game. I just don't have a feel for this, so I'm going to stay away. It is interesting that when the line opened late Saturday night after the USC result, the line opened at 24-24, 24 bet USC down, favored. It got bet down to 21 like immediately in the middle of the night and early Sunday morning.
I mean,
so make
gun to my head, I would take the points at home. Gun to my head, if I had to play the game, I absolutely would take the points, because I think even if you get the backdoor cover late in the game, if Caleb's out of the game, they're not. If they're up 4 touchdowns, Caleb's going to be out of that game because USC has much bigger fish to fry than trying to run the score up on Colorado. So I think at worst you get a backdoor cover by Colorado late.
We will learn a lot about Deion Sanders' team probably in the first 3 or 4 possessions of this game, because if they are not ready to go, if they are being trounced by the first possession or 2 of USC going right down the field, it's big trouble, not just in this game, but for the rest of the year, I think. Where there's a talent disparity coming up week in and week out with these Pac-12 games. Also interesting, this will be the last time, not unlike the Oregon game, this will be the last time these teams will play for a while, and it's at Boulder here for this, because, again, USC is moving into the Big Ten. We got to keep this crap straight, and Colorado is moving into the Big 12, so they're not playing anymore after this game. So that's another fascinating backdrop.
But they'll be recruiting against each other for kids out west. And Lincoln Riley doesn't want to be upstaged. So he's going to have a little juice early for sure. But I think if they get ahead comfortably, Williams will get out of that game, because they got monster games down the road. USC does. And again, we'll stay away officially there on the Colorado USC game. One more, and that's Notre Dame. The late Saturday ABC game, their game day will be there. Again, the big noon kickoff pregame show will be in Boulder for the Coach Prime Love Fest. And again, they're going to have 10 million people watching at noon. You got to believe it. They've had it so far. All right. So now Notre Dame and Duke, who had that as the college game day pregame show before the season began, but Duke is 4-0. They have the Clemson win. Suspect competition after that. Notre Dame off the crushing last-second loss that we well documented. Notre Dame significantly favored, though, as well in this game. Again, you and I staying away officially from this one Saturday night at Wallace Wade Stadium. But Notre Dame is what, a 6 or 6.5 point favorite? Yep, something like that.
All right, so a thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike Elko, remember, he used to coach at Notre Dame before he went to Texas A&M, so he's familiar with that program. This is a spot, I would say, I think Notre Dame will figure out a way to get it done. I know Riley Leonard's a really good player at Duke, the quarterback, and I know Duke's got beat Clemson early, but Clemson helped them a lot in that first game as far as turning the ball over and going for it on 4th down. I like the Notre Dame defense. I think the offensive line could be a factor here, running the ball. I would lean Notre Dame here if I had to, because they're still in the hunt for a CFP playoff berth in theory, because they got USC down the road. They got Clemson down the road. So they got some games. They can beat Duke. They can still get in this, stay in the mix here. So I would lean Notre Dame here.
Again, the Irish got to rise to the occasion after what was a tough loss. They did win in Ireland against Navy. They've also played some easy home games. By the way, I'm just looking on TicketSmarter and the TicketSmarter mobile app one more time for the plug. For them, for our sponsor, it's $127 as the get-in price right now in Durham. If you want the better seats, they're $300 each at Wallace Wade Stadium because it's Notre Dame coming in there. So use the promo code WCE20 and take $20 off the $300 order one more time for that Duke Notre Dame Saturday night primetime game. It's going to cost you $300 for a single ticket. Use the promo code off Ticket Smarter, off the secondary app. But we love that. WCE20 takes the $20 off. And again, I'll stay away officially there, but don't be surprised if Duke gives them trouble. Sam Hartman has experience with Wake Forest, having played Duke the last couple of years. But how shell-shocked are they off the Ohio State loss one more time, Jason?
I don't think they're shell-shocked because, one, I think they know they lost because they only had 10 guys on the field. That who knows if Ohio State would have scored or not. Here's another part of this game. There'll be a lot of Notre Dame in the building, so it won't be a true road game. There'll be a ton of Notre Dame fans in the building, and I think Notre Dame's professional enough. I like what Marcus Freeman's doing. Our guy Spencer Schrader, who's the kicker at Notre Dame's got some Tampa ties as well. Got to get him back on the snide. He missed a kick last week, but I think Sam Hartman, the experience of Sam Hartman playing there, I like Notre Dame to figure out a way to get it done.
Again, it all comes back to Tampa. Spencer Schrader was the University of South Florida kicker for several years. He's now the Notre Dame kicker. He missed a big field goal in the Ohio State game. He's got to redeem himself here on this. We'll see what Duke has. I know David Cutcliffe, I think, had a 5-0 year at one point at Duke. They would be 5-0 if they beat Notre Dame, and who had that?
Elko's a good coach. Elko is a good coach.
And again, we've got some other intriguing games. Alabama at Mississippi State in the SEC. Georgia as the top team is at Auburn. That's usually a game for later in the year, but it's early this year.
Sneaky. LSU at Ole Miss with Kiffin.
That's awful loss. And at Tuscaloosa, that one will be interesting. Texas and Kansas. I looked at that. My man Tyler Jones is all over the Big 12. He's a Kansas grad, and he's like, I don't know about that at Austin, even though Kansas is 4-0 to start the year. So a lot of intriguing games. By means of recap, let's go over it one more time as we get out of here on Three Dog Thursday. 3 underdogs for each of us. Jason will go with 3 games all at noon on Saturday. UAB plus the bushel of points with Tulane, 21.5. He also likes Syracuse, if not to just cover, maybe get the outright win as well against Clemson, getting 7 in the former Carrier Dome against the Tigers. Is Clemson really about to be 0-3 in the ACC if they lose that game Saturday early? And you also like Arkansas, 11 a.m. start at AT&T Stadium. They're going to be pouring beverages until the wee hours of the morning in Dallas, and then that alarm is going to be brutal for a lot of people going to this game. Arkansas and A&M. Arkansas gets 6.5 for you in that one. The 3 underdogs, I will take a Friday night BYU home doggy. Again, BYU 19-3 in their last 22 games at home, straight up. I will take them to win the game, much less being an underdog here in the situation with Cincinnati where that spread flipped around. I am also going to go noon with Florida against Kentucky for an outright win, only a 1.5 underdog on the road. Again, Florida as a road underdog in the SEC the last couple of years is 2-0. They've only been a road underdog twice. Now, I should say that they've played Georgia when Georgia was considered the home team in Jacksonville, but that's not a true road game in Jacksonville. Right. Georgia blew them out and covered. But as a true road underdog at Tennessee last year, at Alabama 2 years ago, Florida covered both times. That's the only 2 times they've been a road underdog. They're a road underdog here with Kentucky. I think they get the win. And the third and final one again is Louisiana. Louisiana Lafayette playing at Minnesota. I will take the 11 points early, 11 a.m. game in Minneapolis. I think it's a look ahead for Minnesota. A loss last week, a look ahead to Michigan. Perfect 3 Dog Thursday spot. Don't let me down, Raging Cajuns, and get yourself blown out on Saturday. I'll be bitter if that's the case. Jason Powers, anything else in closing about the college football this weekend?
We'll either be rich or broke by our 3:30 nap on Saturday afternoon.
And I'll be traveling, by the way, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to New Orleans. And when I land with the Buccaneer travel party, we're either congratulating each other or I'm headed to Bourbon Street and I don't drink and I'll watch other people drink and I'll just be in misery.
Hey, we're eating ramen noodles for dinner. We're either eating ramen noodles or we're eating filet mignon this week.
We shall see. Again, let me push people to the Powers on Sports podcast I love the insight of you and your guests every week on everything, all sports, college, NFL, Major League Baseball, all of it. Great topics on that. If you want Jason's content with Florida football insiders, you'll love that. The insight. We didn't even talk about a couple of the other underdogs like USF, University of South Florida, at Navy as an underdog. Navy put the fear into my Memphis Tigers a couple of weeks ago. USF got a nice win against Rice at home. They finally won an FBS game for like the second time in 3 years. That's an interesting underdog situation.
And Memphis and Boise. Your Memphis Tigers and Boise is an interesting game.
That's another interesting one. But Florida Football Insiders, check it out because you're talking lots about the Florida football teams in college and the NFL. College Gridiron Coast to Coast podcast is where you find that one. Florida Football Insiders. I love that podcast.
UCF with their first ever home game in the Big 12 hosting Baylor.
I've always said when you think Big 12 football, you think UCF Baylor. And we just got to get used to this stuff. I mean, we're eventually going to get to Oregon playing Rutgers. You know that. We're going to get to USC playing a road game at Indiana. I mean, this stuff, it's mind-boggling what we're getting to. Where
or Hawaii versus Louisiana Monroe. Which in a Sun Belt special on Tuesday night.
I know. It's just it's coming. It's all coming. All right, Jason Powers, great stuff. Again, follow him at JPO Sports. We thank you, my friend. Good luck with the underdogs. We appreciate it. All right, there is Jason Powers. Again, Winning Cures Everything, the winningcureseverything.com platform of shows. That's where you find us in podcast form. Again, if you're just listening to us, come see what we look like. Winning Cures Everything, YouTube page, winningcureseverything.com. If you're watching us, you can take us with you, podcast form, 3 Dog Thursday, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts. Take us for 3 Dog Thursday. We're all about the underdogs. Good luck, Jason Powers. Good luck for my 3 as well. Thank you for being with us for another edition of 3 Dog Thursday. Bye.